Hello, everyone. Welcome to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we pick a cinema legend, take 5 of their films to highlight their excellence and range. My name is Austin Luger.
My name is Eric Martindale.
And today is week 3 of our Jodie Foster 5. The previous weeks have included discussions of the film Taxi Driver and The Accused. We have coming up Maverick and Contact. But today we're going for maybe the most popular film in her canon, The Silence of the Lambs. And we are honored to be joined by Dana Cameron. Dana Cameron has won the Agatha, Anthony, and McCavity Award. She has the Emma Fielding Mystery Series and the Fangborn Fantasy Series, and also with the Emma Fielding series, Sight Unseen is going to be a Hallmark movie in just a few days. Dana, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Austin and Eric.
Thank you.
So you are our mystery expert.
Yeah, distinguished guest, by the way.
Distinguished guest.
Oh,
yeah.
I feel like I should be stroking my beard here.
Yeah. So this is this is based off the famous Thomas Harris novel, the second in his Hannibal Lecter series. This is the first one with Clarice in it. Clarice Sterling, played by Jodie Foster, is still a cadet, right? An FBI agent to be, and she is asked to interview Hannibal Lecter to get more information, hopefully, about this killer named Buffalo Bill. Horrors arise from there. This is directed by Jonathan Demme, who just sadly passed away a few weeks ago. And this haunted people in 1991, changed Anthony Hopkins' career forever, as he is now known as the Hannibal the Cannibal, even when he's on Westworld. So I guess the thing I want to kind of start off as is that Dana, as a mystery writer, how does this film do, and how does Clarice do as a detective, really?
I think Clarice as a character is quite incredible because she is really chucked in the deep end. And I can't imagine someone sending someone who hasn't finished and graduated from the academy in to talk to someone like Lecter. I've always wondered about Jack Crawford, and he says that, I sent you without telling you because if you had an agenda, Lecter would never talk to you. But that just seems
cheap.
That always seemed like he was playing with something else there that we didn't really get into with the movie. But she managed to hold her own with him, and watching Jodie Foster with you just said it, Anthony Hopkins, is just one of the most amazing things ever.
And there's a technique that Jonathan Demme uses the whole film that's so effective, where almost all the movie and so many discussions, it's just the actor looking at the camera. You never see it really a two-shot with the actors. Instead, like when she first interacts with Lecter, she's looking at the camera, he's looking at the camera. You are in the middle of their verbal debate, and it is unnerving. And
it's so weird. I was struck this time because this is probably the 4th or 5th time I've seen this film, and I for whatever reason, and even talking about it right now, I really can't remember the movie before the first meeting with Hannibal Lecter. It's really bizarre, and as Danny, hearing you talk about it now, it's kind of like, I'm like, what was that? I don't even remember that. Like, I remember her going in his office. I remember her running the obstacle course, and then all of a sudden, boom! I feel like we're talking with Hannibal Lecter, and then
there's not much time.
Now the rising action's off and on the way. But I know there's not that much time before that. But it was interesting, is I've never thought about the movie before Hannibal inhabits it, I guess.
I really think that he makes the movie for me, and his interaction with Clarice is certainly the most interesting, and most of the rest of it doesn't stand up to that for me. But you're right, it's all that interaction. You were talking about that face-on shot. You get to be both the profiler and the serial killer, looking at the affect, looking for clues in the face of the person you're talking to. And from a mystery writing point of view, that is really kind of a neat thing to me.
And I really love the way that scene's played out with the actors, because you mentioned the obstacle course at the beginning of the movie. That's how the opening credits are going. I love watching Clarice go through the FBI obstacle course, because as it goes on, you recognize that there's nobody else there, and that there's no instructor. She's just doing this for herself to kind of keep getting better. And the only reason she's interrupted is to continue working, basically, because Jack Crawford will see you in his office. And so you see her there. You see Jack Crawford praise all that she's doing, at the academy. Now it's not just that she's.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
I was going to say. I don't remember it. No, I'm kidding. I do, but
so it's kind of awesome. So you see that she is, physically up to be an FBI agent. She is mentally up to be an FBI agent. So when she's up there with Lecter, I love Jodie Foster being so good in that scene. But also when she is creeped out by him, you know that she's never someone who's weak or anything. You as the audience are also freaking out. We are all in the same boat, and because Clarice is such an incredible investigator.
No, she's really good, and I think, at least from my perspective and what I took out of it, particularly that first meeting with Hannibal, so much of that meeting is him just sizing her up. She's reciprocating that in some ways, but at some point she always has to revert back to what her job is. Like, I have to have you fill out this paper or whatever. Please do this. And he's feeling her out the whole time and seeing her, and seeing how she stretches her limits and her capabilities and that sort of thing. Like in ways that I don't understand. I go into this movie accepting the fact that Hannibal Lecter is almost supernatural in the way he's able to analyze Clarice and whoever else. But throughout that conversation and seeing them do that with her, he then decides to dismiss her. She goes back, send someone else, fly away, Starling. She goes away. Then multiple MIGs does what he does, and then he extends her a courtesy, almost like, okay, let's see how good you really are. And she figures it out. And from then on, I feel like there's almost in a weird way a sort of mutual respect that starts to build and sort of go from there. I mean, am I crazy for that? But
well, no, it's the moment I think when she runs back to him. That is the first real two shot. You see both in the same frame, and it's at a weird angle, and it's so intense because all the other prisoners are screaming, and she's running towards the devil for a half second, basically.
No, and of course, and it happens later too. I guess the point I'm making is, did he deem her worthy to parlay with him in that first meeting, or was he just extending her the courtesy? Because what I'm saying is, does the plot of this film happen if multiple MIGs is not in the cell next door?
That's a really interesting point, because my take was always that Miggs breached the courtesy that they had established between the two of them.
Right.
And at one point, to me, Lecter is bored because she's on mission. She has to get that questionnaire filled out, and she's not going to play with him the way he's hoping, or she's not going to be as canny as Crawford might have been, and been more engaging to him. But with that, he owes her something to me. And I think the fact that she goes to him is interesting. I think, Eric, the way that you're looking at it, she is running to the devil, but she's not looking to him. Is she looking to him for the mission at that point, or is she looking to him because she's just been freaked out by Miggs? That's the interesting question to me.
That is a very interesting question, and I don't think I have the answer to that. She runs to him later in the film in a very prominent way when he's in the cell at the end.
Yeah.
But they at that point have established a weird sort of trust.
Well, it's interesting because the movie is very focused on the plot of the mystery the entire time. There's not any sort of subplot like that. But even when we see Clarice's friend near the end, they're still talking about work. We don't ever get to see Clarice talk about anything else besides that, except with Lecter, which is still talking about her past is to get to a work-related solution. But weirdly, the two of them are the closest.
I agree entirely. And in fact, I think the reason that I found it believable that she should run back to Lecter after the scene with Miggs is that at that point in the movie, we don't know it, but eventually we're going to find out that he's the only one that she can really trust. And I use that in a very loose sense, because Crawford's messing with her for whatever reason. The other, men she's working with in the, police force are dismissive of her in one way or the other when she encounters them in West Virginia. And at least Lecter is telling her, Crawford's setting you up. I want to talk about this, and we'll talk about these things. She doesn't know what that might lead to, but at least he's being more honest than other people in the movie. And when she's talking with her friend, Ardella, about work, or Ardelia, rather, I think she has work because she's trying to blot out everything else that happened to her before. I think it's work because it's the movie, and that's the mystery and everything, but I also think that's going to give her the separation from that little girl who ran away with the lamb.
Yeah, it's like it's a therapy, right? That
Yes,
she's attending, and it's weird to not think of that. Probably the first or second or third time I've seen the film. This being like the fourth or fifth, I'm not sure. But I mean, Hannibal Lecter's a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is a type of therapy that he is, of course, performing on her as well. But yeah, it was just a weird thought I was struck with this time watching the movie, that I just don't know if the plot ever happens if Miggs isn't in that cell.
Well,
Yeah. It's one can imagine that maybe Lecter gets bored, and then what's his name, Chilton, starts to prod him, and then maybe Clarice gets reintroduced into it. But yeah, Miggs is kind of pivotal.
Yeah. And in every book and movie, especially TV show, I love Chilton. He's just the worst.
Oh,
he's just...
the great thing about Lecter in this and in the books is that you find yourself weirdly attracted to him as a protagonist.
Yeah,
and you really shouldn't be.
When you're rooting and you're like cheering about one man who's going to eat another man.
Yeah.
Because everyone thinks it's funny and delightful when he says he's going to eat Chilton at the end of the movie. Yeah. So that is if you can do that, that's pretty interesting.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about some plot elements, because I have never had to structure a mystery novel before. Dana, I believe you've done it a few times.
A couple times.
Yeah. Yep. So I've always been fascinated by, I've always been intimidated, I guess, by the idea of getting from clue to clue to clue. And in a lot of serial killer novels, it's always kind of you're just running towards the kind of solution in a different way than a traditional mystery. But what do you think about the mystery structure of this, Dana? Because she gets the most obscure clue from Hannibal started off to get to this car.
Yeah. What do you think about how it all sort of unravels, the breadcrumbs there? I'd be interested.
As a consumer, I found it engaging the first time. Like, how is she making these leaps? How is she figuring out when he's playing with her, how he's playing with her with the anagrams and everything? But as a writer, I'm like, okay, serial killers are incredibly unreliable, except in the fact that A, they're going to kill again, and B, they really, they want to have some kind of recognition for it. And so the anagrams and everything kind of drove me nutty. For example, I think the first time I watched it, I wasn't a mystery writer at that point, but just sort of paying attention to things, I was like, okay, that's kind of engaging. He's giving her, as you said, I think it was breadcrumbs. And it's always very interesting to see how much they are able to make out of those little things. And one wonders how much they needed him for after a certain point, once they found the head, for example.
Yeah, I kind of, that's weird that you're saying that. It's weird for me just because I actually thought that for the first time in this movie too. They're really focused on Hannibal Lecter solving this crime.
Yeah.
Like really focused on that, and to a point where it didn't drive me crazy or whatever, because I look at this film more as about the relationship between, from Starling's arc, but the relationship between Hannibal and Starling more so. Not that you're not looking at it that way either, but just that those scenes are always so incredible. Mm-hmm. But this was the first time where I watched them where I wondered how pivotal they really were.
Well, I've seen this so many times. I've read the book now a couple times. I still just kind of forget how we got somewhere. Like the part near the end is cinematically amazing when you realize that Jack Crawford's at the wrong location and Clarice is at the right one. And it's just like a great oh shit moment.
Well, it's also great how it parallels them going the wrong direction and she's on
literally,
the right track, literally. And then those subtle moments and nuances where they start with, hey, this is just some weird guy's door I knocked on where I'm trying to talk to you about the seamstress that we blah, blah, blah. And then as both of them slowly start to put it together that I know who you are and you know who I am. And the way that sort of works is all cinematically brilliant. I don't think that can be denied necessarily.
No.
But as far as the structure, I'd never really considered it so much until this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that because the suspense is quite good, I think, but it always feels like, at least to me, the Buffalo Bill character and that part of the plot is always quite separate, and he just seems to be a quite horrible but generic clownish boogeyman.
Right, it's definitely true.
Yeah, and quite apart from the transphobia, the homophobia of the character, there's a bit of laziness involved in the way that the character was drawn. There always seemed to be such a distance between that part of the story and the tension between Lecter and Clarice.
Yeah, I agree. I don't find Buffalo Bill scary in the slightest. I don't know if that is... he's obviously disturbed and he's doing weird things, but they're almost... Maybe it's because now a lot of stuff has come out since Silence of the Lambs, but looking at it now seems pretty generic.
Well, there is... So I reread the book a couple of years ago, and with the transphobia, there was actually some, like... I felt like there was some effort to Thomas Harris's part to kind of, like, say that this is this person. This isn't at all this community. Mm-hmm. And they had to reduce that. Well, not had to. They could have more. But there was one line into this movie of like where Clarice makes a comment about how like this isn't typically behavior seen, and but it's still like
no, you're right. There's one line where she says, "Well, transsexuals are usually not like that. They're usually something else." Or
quite
something.
passive is the expression they use.
Yeah,
quite passive.
But
that's what it is.
As a character, I never like. When he was the boogeyman off screen, I actually didn't think about him very much. Mm-hmm. But when you see Ted Levine in the house, and him like flicking his business cards away, like that to me worked more than anything else because it's just a really great actor, and it's something about like you have Clarice basically keep looking monsters in the eyes basically throughout this film, and not only are they such intimidating people because of the violence they do, they're also just people who this is exactly who they are. They're not looking for revenge for somebody. They are just a psychopath who will eat people. They're someone who will consider people less than him, so he's going to cut them up to make a suit. Like it's just like it's the fear of the almost how natural it is, I guess, to me. Like these are. It's crazy how normal's the wrong word. Am I making any sense? Like
how crazy they are, how crazy their craziness is.
That's it.
The lack of empathy, the lack of any affect, the lack of a recognition of other people. It's unnerving, and that does work in that situation. That last scene you were talking about, she's looking them in the eye, and I was thinking a lot about, and I'm going to get real pretentious here, the cinematic gaze. That happens in that. I heard you snickering.
No. I was laughing. I'm like, oh yeah, we never get pretentious in this show.
I was the snicker you heard, and that's why. That's exactly why we're pretentious often.
We did 5 weeks of Kurosawa. You're fine.
We did Kurosawa, and the network of podcasts is called The Art Immortal. I don't know if it gets more pretentious than that.
So please, but cinematic gaze. That's very important in this film, actually.
Well, it's she's looking them in the eye, but at the end, when James is looking at her quite literally through those night vision goggles, he is seeing her as few people see her, and that's when her acting really comes out for me because it would be very easy. I mean, that's the sort of gaze, the sort of scene we have in schlock films where the heroine goes alone into the basement. How many times do we see that? And we see her, and she's not just going, oh, and she's going to throw a shoe at someone. She's absolutely terrified. She cannot stand up because her knees are shaking so badly.
Yeah, and one thing that I definitely am with you is she can't keep quiet. she knows she has to be quiet, but she's breathing so loud. Like, I mean, because that's all you hear during that scene is the like that, and you see the gun just trembling in her hand and stuff like that. And she knows how important it is to be quiet, and she literally can't do it. But she's not backing down. She's not looking for an exit.
She's not falling down and just covering her head, which I think at that scene, if you've been afraid and you've moved through a house and at night or in the dark or something, and you're afraid someone's in there, it's very easy to want to retreat, and she doesn't. And that kind of, on one hand, to me, it's playing with that old horror movie, camp killer, serial killer movie. On the other hand, you look at it, it's like he and Lecter are the only ones who have really seen what she has behind that professional exterior.
And it's so interesting because this is often considered a horror film, and yet unlike the protagonists of Friday the 13th or whatever, I never judge her behavior. I never ever judge her for being scared or making noises in the basement, like the same way I will scream at the screen for Scream. Because it's such an incredible character. Like, I just kind of, like... Because I remember, like, when I first read the books, I'm like, is she too similar to Will Graham from Red Dragon? It's a similar relationship. And it kind of isn't, because she has this incredible ambition to do the job right. It's not like the kind of evil ambition you see in stories where I would just screw everyone over and become CEO.
Right.
You see her not kidding, saying, "Oh, Chicago's only 400 miles away. I can get into and happy to go there." She just wants to do the job, and it's so respectable, and it's so she's able to go this far into hell to save people and
be so willing to do it. One thing that's really interesting about this story, and I was speaking to someone who's read a lot of mystery novels, someone who's written them and read them, and someone like me who's a complete layman. But it seems to me to be a very odd point to pick up the story. And I know this is the introduction of Clarice, but as far as Buffalo Bill's progression, he's killed his last victim by the time we pick up the story.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, if you think, he doesn't kill anyone in the movie,
Well,
he's in the process of he abducts someone, and he
we're trying to save her. Then that's the
true. No, I know, and I get that, but don't you see how that feels a little different than most? Like normally we're following, the person. We're seeing the serial killer. He kills one. He kills someone else. Now he's toying with us. There's a letter to police, and then there's another victim, and then we look at the clues there. At least that's the way it seems like to a layman. He's killed his last victim by the time the story opens.
And I think that, yeah. So, Dan, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and that that's an interesting point I hadn't considered before, but they also give sort of that double urgency of having the 3 or 4 days where he's going to keep her down at the bottom of the well, and the fact that she's the senator's daughter and the president is concerned, and that sort of is, I think, there maybe to make up for the fact that he's already done so much of the killing off screen. I mean, it might as well be, and I'm going to go out and limit to this, it might as well be Agatha Christie for the fact that the bodies are already on the library rug by the time we start, for the most part.
I think it's interesting. I find it original. I'm saying it's original that way, like I know all these mystery stories. but I just think it was something that always struck me from before, and then watching this time, it's like, yeah, Buffalo Bill. It's the hunt to stop. We're not playing we're playing catch up, but we're preventing the crime from happening. That's the movie,
right.
Which is just. I thought that was interesting.
This is the sequel to Red Dragon, and that was once again a serial killer with Hannibal Lecter's help trying to stop him, and that was someone who seems to be at the very beginning of his serial killer path, and that guy actually had like notes in the paper interacting with Lecter from prison. So perhaps this was Harris got away from that.
Well, it's also a really typical thriller structure. You know who the villain is. You know that he's going to do something else. You know when it's going to happen. Can you stop it in time? So it might just be a different type of crime story,
Yeah, and that's true too. I mean, just from the dramatic irony's sake, we as the audience are seeing Buffalo Bill. We know what Buffalo Bill's doing. We see him capture the girl, and then we see the police catching up to that, and that's helping build the tension, so to speak. Because at the point we're seeing him, we get a better idea, I guess, of what he's capable of. Well, they know that, I guess, but we're actually seeing it on screen, which I guess makes it a little different.
So, Dana, with your mystery novels, we don't know who the killer is. How do you then work that into your thing where he or she is around, but you don't know him the way that we know it's Buffalo Bill at the beginning?
It's because I don't usually know who the killer is at the beginning. When I'm writing it either, I don't know until I get to a point where I either find the motive that really sends me, and then I go and back solve and fix things in the manuscript so that it all works out. Or I've left myself all the clues. I'm like, oh, it could only be so-and-so because of these things. So I do a lot of cheating. I do a lot of back solving because I am what is euphemistically called a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. I don't outline. And I find it very stifling if I do. So I am finding my way, not necessarily in chronological order as I write a scene, but by the scene that comes to me. How are these characters interacting? What are they doing? And then eventually I put them together. And hopefully once I've lined them up in order, I'll have an idea of who the killer is.
I admire that so much because it feels like, especially like all the mystery writers that we know, it is almost like 50-50 about those who completely outline and those who do your style as well. And
sure.
I cannot do your style. Whenever I write anything, I always know the ending.
Yep.
So I admire you so much for making that puzzle work so well.
Well, it's funny because everyone thinks of them as so different, but I realized, having had to write outlines, that it's time compression. You're just doing all the work right up front and doing all the energy at front to figure out what the structure is. I'm taking a longer time, but I'll have more prose and description and dialogue in there by the time I get done. So it's just the way the time is arranged.
And that's more fun than bullet points anyway.
Well, it's also it's equally as excruciating. There's always a point where you have to have that moment. It's like, okay, now we have to turn it into a book.
Go ahead. Sorry, I just know that we're getting short on time. I feel remiss if we didn't bring this up. So,
sure.
This is a pretty big and famous female protagonist here, living in what is presented to be a men's environment, right? Mm-hmm. It's interesting because we just came off The Accused, and now we're coming here to Silence of the Lambs, and while the characters are very different, they exist in kind of the same world in a weird way. But anyway, I just thought I came to this line of thinking while I was in the film, and I was wondering, I'm going to throw this out there, and people are going to probably scream in podcast land, but so pretty much everyone Clarice meets in this film and has some sort of serious conversation with, or has some time on screen from Jack Crawford to Hannibal Lecter to the gentleman with the bugs, the bug people identifying them off. Yeah. They all seem to be attracted to her, right? But not necessarily like all the other people around who are just like checking her out, or certainly what Miggs does and the things they say to her, and all the other men are like on the course with her, the training course with her. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, other than it felt like there's a lot of characters that, like, once they talk with her or have a conversation with her, seem to fall quickly in love with her.
Well, that's interesting. I think at the time, part of it might have been the novelty of a woman who is an agent, not yet a special agent.
Sure.
And part of it might just be bad writing.
Yeah, I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone talks about this as an incredibly feminist film, and I really disagree with that. I mean, particularly, we were talking about that scene with that gaze where, everyone says, well, she's not like a rough and tumble Sylvester Stallone character where she's going to muscle away. But like, yeah, okay, she figures it out. She's smart, she's strong. But she also she only gets there through her vulnerability, which kind of drives me crazy.
Oh, that's
it's a very anti-feminist trope. And the fact that everyone treats her either as a tool or as, a potential, sex object or something, has always driven me up the wall. And it's funny because you were talking about the people she talks to. The one time where she's not talking about work, where she seems to have like a smile on her face and a real engagement.
With her girlfriend?
Was with her friend Ardelia.
Yeah, I couldn't remember her name, yeah.
Yeah, and with the young woman she's talking to about the missing girl, and they're in a diner or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she relates to them because they're not part of that male authority structure, is the way I always took that. And that's where you get actually some affect from her that's sort of, it's not necessarily the work face.
It's a little looser, yeah.
It's a little looser, it's a little bit more comfortable. So she has to, and one part I understand it, because if you're in that situation where it's all guys and they've got the key to your career and everything else, you're going to be on point, you're going to be no nonsense, you're going to do what, you're going to be professional about it. And it's a real relief when you don't have to do that. So you see little moments of it. I'm not sure it works through the whole movie, but that was my take from it.
When Jonathan Demme died a few weeks ago, there were all these kind of things on Twitter and some really nice articles about his body of work. And one image that just kind of kept coming up a lot, where people kind of said that he was such a subtly powerful visual director, and that you can kind of tell a story, tell a theme in a single frame, was from this film. And it was early on in the movie when she steps into the elevator, and there have to be 8 guys who's all be 6 feet tall. And
she's also probably 4 foot 10.
Right.
And she's really short.
And it's such a striking image, and that even as, to me, and obviously just I'm a white dude talking about this and whatnot, but it's just a movie where she is always up against these forces, whether they are the most evil monsters of the planet or it's all these dudes in power structures.
Even Jack Crawford is...
Well, Jack Crawford's the worst.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, he's awful.
Yeah.
And he does this to a lot of characters in this series. I mean, in the book Red Dragon and the TV series of Hannibal, he doesn't treat Will Graham very well.
Yeah.
In fact, he makes him lose his mind completely.
But actually, you see, I have an easier time of it. It seems better justified or a better reason from a character's point of view in the series Hannibal.
Mm-hmm. Well, the series Hannibal, I'm a big fan of that show.
Oh, yes.
And
it's so good.
They always said the next season would have Clarice, if they get the rights to Clarice, because that's the one character they don't have the rights to. But
sure.
Brian Fuller has said over and over again that he has a really good pitch to tell the Silence of the Lambs stories, and I would love to see it. I guess we have to end the episode by talking also about mystery books being adapted into television. Hey Dana. Well,
yeah.
What's coming up in a few days, and how did this happen?
Wow. June 4th will be the premiere of Sight Unseen, an Emma Fielding mystery on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries, 9 o'clock, 8 Central. And this all happened within about less than a year, which is kind of nutty, because I was asked if the books were available for option late last summer. By the end of the year, we announced that the books had been optioned by Muse Entertainment. And then February, they said, so it looks like we're greenlighting. And then April, they were shooting, and I visited the set, rather. And so it's happening very, very quickly. I'm very excited. It's got Courtney Thorne-Smith playing Emma Fielding. And they've, of course, adapted it from the books quite a bit, but with the same general plot and theme and characters. And so there is an FBI agent who is in this particular Emma-verse, shall we say, and he's played by James Tupper.
Was it very surreal to go to the set?
Extremely. In fact, it had all happened so quickly that I was still in a state of disbelief. Yeah, we pulled up to the sheriff's office, and we're in Victoria, British Columbia, and I realized that there's a Maine state flag and the Stars and Stripes. I'm like, wait a minute, they don't do that in Canada. Something's really happening here. And then I got to meet the cast and crew, and it was really cool. I got to watch them shoot. The next day, we went to the set on location, which was the archaeological site, and that was amazing because it looked very much as I had envisioned it in the novel. It looked like sites I'd worked on, down to the tents, which are, by the way, very handy for hiding cameras and crews when necessary. And the crew had been out there. The crew had been out there excavating it, so it looked like a dig, and so it smelled like dirt. And so all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm gonna dig. And it was pretty wild. At one point, it started to rain because British Columbia. And my first instinct was to get out of the chair and take off my headphones to go and cover up the site units and cover the notebooks. And my husband sort of looked at me and said, "Not your problem, not your site. You don't need to worry about that." But it was really amazing watching the cast talk about things that I talked about in the books and that I've said to my own students. And to see how they put a movie together is amazing. They're so professional. It was incredibly precise what they had planned to do for the day, how they're going to do it, contingency plans. It was amazing.
That's awesome. Congratulations, Dana. That's
Thank you
really
so
cool.
much.
And I feel that
It's very exciting.
I feel that you announced this only a handful of months ago. Did you have to keep a secret for a long time?
No, because when we were able to announce the option, that was a couple months, and that was
Okay.
right up until the last minute. I didn't know if it was going to happen, so not a problem. And then it's been the matter of a few months in between things, and so I haven't had to have the secret for very long. But I'm glad it wasn't longer, and I'm very surprised it wasn't longer because these things don't usually work out that way, if they do work out at all. So it is happening very fast. It's just as fast as you imagine it is.
And can you say, once again, when it's going to air?
Sure. It's June 4th. It's a Sunday on the Hallmark Movies and Mysteries channel. And it's at 9 o'clock, 8 Central.
All right. And do you have any upcoming work that we can read?
I am working on a few projects. I can't talk about them yet, but there's a few short stories, and I have... I finished up last year a novel based on my Anna Hoyt short story character, and I'm hoping that will find a home in print very, very soon.
All right, that's fantastic. And we can also see everything at, I believe, danacameron.com.
Absolutely.
All right, and we're going to do the rest of our little plugs here. Eric, where else can we find you?
Constant Diversions, my YouTube channel. I say that every week, so you've been there by now.
You've been, probably. And you can always go to theartofmore.com to leave your thoughts about Silence of the Lambs or any other shows that we do. At that site, you could check out the podcast The Immortals, where myself and 4 others review the 1001 movies, albums, food, songs, children's books, and TV shows that you must consume before you die. And yesterday's, it's insane. Yesterday's episode was like number 77, I think, where we reviewed A Touch of Zen and the Margaret Cho TV show, All American Girl. And Ad Absurdum, Sarah Stout's legal podcast, where 2 bona fide lawyers and a special guest every month take a fictional film and talk about the real life law behind it. And next month they are covering war games, which I am fascinated by, to see what's real in war games. Also, we're on Twitter at the Immortals Pod. Let's Take 5, theartofmore.com. We'll be back next Friday with the review of Maverick, which I really hope
I liked it
holds
when
up.
I was 15.
Me too.
I haven't seen it since then, so...
I remember her being really funny. But, Dana, thank you so much for joining us. This was a real treat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dana.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. This has been a blast.
All right, and we're all going to be watching Sight Unseen in a few days. So, I'm Austin Luger.
I'm Eric Martindale.
And I'm Dana Cameron.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Quid pro quo. I tell you things, you tell me things. Not about this case, though. About yourself. Quid pro quo. Yes or no? Yes or no, Clarice? Poor little Catherine is waiting.
Go, Doctor.
What is your worst memory of childhood?
Death of my father.
Tell me about it and don't lie, or I'll know.
He was a town marshal, and one night he surprised 2 burglars coming out of the back of a drugstore. They shot him.
Was he killed outright?
No, he was very strong. He lasted more than a month. My mother died when I was very young, so my father had become the holy world to me. And when he left me, I had nothing. I was 10 years old.
You're very frank, Clarice. I think it would be quite something to know you in private life.
Quid pro quo, Doctor.
So tell me about Miss West Virginia. Was she a large girl?
Yes,
Big through the hips? Roomy?
they all were.
What else?
She had an object deliberately inserted into her throat. Now, that hasn't been made public yet. We don't know what it means.
Was it a butterfly?
Yes, a moth. Just like the one we found in Benjamin Raspail's head an hour ago. Why does he place them there, Doctor?
The significance of the moth is change. Caterpillar into chrysalis or pupa, and from thence into beauty. Our belly wants to change too.